I'm Catherine Ball, and welcome to my channel, A Touch of Flourish. We're going to be talking about pregnancy loss during the month of October. If you don't know, October is Pregnancy Loss and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So it's not an easy topic for sure, but I think that it's an important thing that we need to kind of get out in the open. It feels like such a taboo subject, miscarriage, stillbirth, that sort of thing. A lot of times, especially within the Christian community, it feels like that kind of needs to be hidden or not talked about, or you should just get over it. And I don't think that that's fair. And I don't think that that doesn't help anyone, right? So that doesn't really bring us closer to God when we're just told to get over it. I also don't think that people really know what happens. I don't think that they really understand not only the physical trauma, but the emotional and mental trauma that we go through. I mean, people think that early, miscarriages are, oh, you just will have a heavy period. And maybe some people do. But some people have incredibly dangerous circumstances happen as a result from incomplete miscarriages. I'm one of them. So that was rough. There's also those of us, myself included, that have had the late term miscarriage and stillbirth. And that is gut wrenching. And it's all terrible. There's not one or the other that I'd be like, oh, I'd rather go through that. Or I'd rather go through none. I'd rather go through none of it. None of it. So I hope that you find this to be a safe place to talk about it. I welcome you to share your story and your testimony. It's okay if you're not in a good place. It's okay if you're seeing this video and you're like, I want to come back and just watch it when I'm a little bit better. I feel more grounded. That's okay too. Don't push yourself into having to watch these. I'm going to leave these up. I'm also going to continue to talk about these things for the rest of my life. So it's not something that, is going to go away. One of the biggest things that we can feel when we experience a miscarriage is we can feel very, very alone. I think that might be the most common thing that we all feel, and that we can all come around and say, hey, even if you don't believe in God, even if you don't believe, it's incredibly lonely. It's incredibly lonely to experience it. I don't care how many people you're surrounded by. There's something about it, because it's like, you're holding that baby, you're carrying that baby. And to experience that loss, it feels just like it's you and that baby. Or maybe you had twins, maybe you had triplets, whatever it is, it can feel like you're the only one in it. And, coming from a Christian standpoint, I think that that's why let's really talk about it, because I know that isn't the truth. And so what's really difficult too about this is, I want to talk about having and holding space for those emotions and experiencing those emotions and kind of sitting in them, while also recognizing God's truth. So it's not minimizing or devaluing or invalidating yourself. It's not saying, I don't feel this, or no, it's fine, or shoving it down. It's really saying, this is the worst day of my life, or this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, or I can't believe this has happened. I feel crushed. I feel so alone, angry, hurt. I am disappointed. I am in a place of feeling absolutely hopeless, or I feel, these are things that we need to recognize. We need to allow ourselves to feel so that we can hopefully release them. And I think the way that we release them is writing it down, physically moving our bodies, doing things that, crying, just things that get out, maybe you need to scream in a pillow, whatever it is. I think that we need to move towards that. I also think, while you experience those things, while you're doing that, I think it's helpful to write out everything that you feel or believe, everything that you feel or believe. And then also to write out what is the truth here. We need to locate what we know. My pastor says that all the time. Locate what you know to be true. And that helps you keep that barometer of where God's at. Okay, so, for us, I think what we've been taught not in so many words, is just that we have to get God on our side, right? God's here to serve us. And that's not true. We're here to serve God. We have to get on God's side. We have to continually turn and make sure that we're in alignment with God and let him and allow him to align and realign us as he sees fit. And so sometimes we can get off balance. Sometimes we can start to believe these lies like I'm alone, or nobody will ever understand, or, it's just this stuff that becomes incredibly isolating. And I think that the enemy wants to isolate us from one another. And God built us for a relationship. And I think that it's important to connect and say, hey, you may not fully understand this exact situation, but here's what happened. Right? So I'm not saying that, and here's the truth. Even like with me, each miscarriage was so drastically different from one another. Each loss, each child, each experience, it was so different. And I'm one person. So from person to person, we're not going to have the exact same events happen. We might, but we're probably not going to have the exact same thing. And it doesn't mean that we can't find a common ground and connect and say, hey, I'm sorry for your loss. This is what's going on. I think where we get into a little bit of trouble is where we start to say, we see that someone else is in pain, that someone else has gone through a loss, and we say, I know exactly what that's like, and I'll tell you exactly what would have helped me. And we need to stop ourselves and say, hold on for a second. Okay, I can see this person's hurting, and let me see what they need. And now some people can instinctively know what someone else will need, right? They have that level of empathy. And some people don't. But I think the most important thing to do is to just ask the person, listen, I want to be here for you. What is it that is going to help you? What can I do for you? How can I be here for you? There's nothing wrong with asking those questions. Now, the person may not even be able to verbalize that yet. And sometimes we just need to sit with them in silence. So I think we do have to be careful about projecting our experiences on others and saying, I know exactly what it's like, because it's just not true. You don't know exactly what it's like. I don't know what it's like for, exactly with what you went through and me. But I think that holding that space and saying, listen, however you're feeling is completely normal. And we need to, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to continue to check in on you. It's okay if you don't want to reach out. Now, if someone says, I really don't want to be bothered, I really don't want to, we do need to respect that. I do think that on some level too, we also need to recognize within ourselves whenever there's stuff going on that's not normal, like maybe postpartum depression. So when we are at a higher risk, when we experience miscarriages and stillbirths, to experience postpartum depression. Now, for me personally, I have not experienced that. It doesn't mean I won't in the future. It just means that I haven't experienced it. So I do want to point out that if it's something that if you feel like you have there's been a period of time where it doesn't feel normal, it doesn't feel like you're going through ebbs and flows of grief, it feels much more deeper than this. Maybe it feels darker, maybe it feels way more hopeless, than what you hear others talking about. I think that this is a good time to reach out to a professional. And I don't think that this is just me, but I feel like God works through relationships and anoints others for healing. And he does this with so many different types of people. And I don't think that we should say, well, I'm not going to go to a therapist and, because God's just going to heal me miraculously. Well, hold on for a second. Let's go to God and see what God is saying. And he might be saying to go see a therapist. I think that's, and there's really no harm in going, especially if you have access, because not everybody has access. So if you do have access, there's nothing wrong with asking for help in that way. And there's so much hope in terms of having help, whether it be through therapy. Some people actually end up having hormonal imbalances. So reaching out to these medical professionals, to your doctor, to a therapist, to someone, only good things can really come from that, because they can't know that something is wrong unless you let them know. They can't just know that you're going through postpartum. You probably will have to tell them, hey, I'm kind of concerned. Is this normal? And even checking with your OBGYN is a good place, because most will be able to refer you to a therapist that is skilled with postpartum depression. I'm going to continue to get into these subjects in the coming weeks, just regarding miscarriage. And that might be about anger. It might be about unbelief. It might be about more isolation. It's about all of that stuff, and how we can relate that to God and what God is really saying. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that if you feel free enough, that you will share with me just a little bit about you and what you've been through, and where you're at spiritually. Because listen, I don't think there's a wrong answer. Even if you're like, yeah, I hate God, and I just don't even know if I can ever talk to him again. Like that, being real about it and being honest, like that's okay. That's okay here. And I think that, if you're willing to be honest about it and share, I think that it's also going to help you look at that and face it. I think that, it would help me, because I think sometimes, when we write things out, it's like, wow, I didn't even really realize that was everything that I was holding on to. So, whatever it is, wherever you are in your grief walk, with your losses, I really appreciate, when you share, if you share, because it also helps me. I'm also someone who has gone through these losses, and is allowing God to heal me through all of this too. So, like I said, we're in this together. I don't have it all figured out, and it's always helpful to me to also feel that support and feel like, I want you involved. It's not just all about me. For more content on miscarriage awareness, go ahead and subscribe. You're going to get this directly sent to you if you subscribe to my channel, and understand that later on I will be covering other topics like endometriosis, interstitial cystitis, pelvic floor dysfunction, spirituality in general, the church hurt stuff, and all of it, all the stuff we get into here. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time and watching this, and I look forward to reading your stories, your testimonies, and where you're at. Thank you so much. Take care.